Nobody talks about Japanese parents the way they talk about tiger moms, or French parents, or Scandinavian free range childhoods. There are no best selling books about it right now, no viral parenting influencers breaking it down in reels. It doesn't trend, it doesn't get hot takes, it doesn't get documentaries, it just quietly produces results that the rest of the world keeps trying to reverse engineer without ever asking the right questions. And yet, Japan consistently produces children who are calm, capable, focused, and here's the part that quietly stuns outside observers, genuinely helpful. Not because someone is standing over them with a checklist, not because they have been drilled with flashcards and scheduled within an inch of their lives, but because something in the way they were raised made discipline feel like the natural way to exist in the world. Not a cage, just the air they breathe. And here's what nobody tells you: Japanese children aren't disciplined because of rules, they're disciplined because of atmosphere. Picture this: it's 1987. You're 6 years old in a quiet neighborhood outside Kyoto. You wake up before your parents do. You make your own breakfast. Maybe rice, maybe toast, and you pack your own bag. You put on your uniform, and then you walk to school alone, past the rice merchants and the vending machines and the neighbors who bow when they see you. Nobody walks with you. Nobody follows in a car 2 blocks back. Nobody texts anyone to make sure you arrived. You get to school, swap your outdoor shoes for indoor ones at the entrance, and take your seat. Before lunch, you and your classmates carry the food trays from the kitchen to the classroom. You serve each other. After lunch, you pick up a broom. You mop. You wipe down the desks. The teacher doesn't direct you, you just know this wasn't a special program. This wasn't character education week. This was just Wednesday. A 2019 study published in the Journal of Cross-Cultural Psychology found that Japanese children as young as 5 showed significantly higher levels of self-regulation and task persistence than age-matched peers in the United States. A gap researchers trace directly to early communal responsibility structures embedded in both the home and the classroom. But the Japanese didn't need a study to confirm what they already understood. They just do it. Been doing it for generations. What that environment built, slowly, without announcement, was a child who understood deeply that they were part of something larger than themselves. And that understanding became the invisible foundation beneath everything else. Here's the first major thing Japanese parenting does that the rest of the world keeps getting wrong: it trusts children with real responsibility. Early, radically early. 6-year-olds in Tokyo ride the subway to school by themselves. Elementary schoolers carry their own school supplies for long distances. They clean their own classrooms without being told, serve lunch to their peers, and manage their own schedules in ways that would make Western parents deeply uncomfortable. Nobody watches over their shoulder. Nobody narrates the process back to them. Psychologists might call what this builds intrinsic competence identity, the sense that your value isn't something adults announce to you from the outside, it's something you confirm to yourself through your own actions. But Japanese parents don't call it anything. They just expect it, and their children deliver. The contrast here is where the wound comes from. Western parenting spent several decades telling children they were exceptional simply for showing up, that their feelings were the most important variable in any room. That effort alone, regardless of outcome, was worth a standing ovation. And what it accidentally produced, in many cases, were children who needed constant external signals to feel okay. Children who didn't know how to sit alone with a hard thing. Japanese children don't get that kind of praise. Nobody applauds them for walking to school. Nobody issues a certificate for sweeping the floor. The reward is invisible. And that's precisely the point. When competence isn't performed for approval, it stops being performance. It becomes identity. It goes underground. And from underground, it holds. That's a logic behind habits 1, 2, and 3. Early and genuine independence, communal responsibility built into daily life, and the deliberate withdrawal of external praise as the engine of motivation. Now, here's the thing that outsiders consistently misread about Japanese parenting: the silence. Japanese parents don't lecture at length. They don't sit a child down and explain in full paragraphs why the behavior was problematic. They don't open a dialogue. They don't negotiate outcomes or validate both perspectives. They go quiet. They give a look. A specific kind of stillness enters the room, and somehow, without a word being exchanged, the child understands completely. People who grew up in Western households sometimes look at this and see emotional coldness, distance, withholding. It isn't any of those things. It's precision. This connects to something called haji, a lived cultural awareness of social shame, not as trauma or psychological damage, but as calibration. You feel the temperature of the room shift. You read faces. You adjust before anyone has to explain anything to you. Habit 4 is silence as a primary disciplinary instrument, not cruelty, precision. Habit 5 is the cultivation of deep social attunement, the ability to read a room before the room speaks. Western parenting narrates. Japanese parenting trains children to listen to what isn't being said. But here's what's fascinating. Japanese parents are, in the first years of a child's life, among the most physically close and emotionally available parents anywhere on the planet. Co-sleeping, the family bed, is entirely normal and very common, not an edge case practiced by a niche group. Babies are carried against the body for most of the day. Toddlers are rarely separated from their mothers for any significant stretch. The first 4 or 5 years are defined by radical physical proximity, warmth, and what developmental psychologists would recognize as textbook secure attachment. And then, almost suddenly, the independence begins. That's a paradox that stops observers cold. The same culture that keeps a child in the family bed until age 5 also sends that child to navigate public transit alone at 6. The same parents who responded immediately to every infant need will, within a few short years, expect that child to manage their own belongings, clean their own space, contribute to the household, and handle difficult social situations without being rescued from them. It looks like contradiction, but it isn't. The early closeness is an indulgence, it's infrastructure. It builds a secure internal base, something solid and warm at the center of the child, from which independence becomes possible rather than frightening. You push off from something stable. You don't just fall into open water. Habit 6 is the practice of amae, a Japanese concept describing the comfort of leaning into dependence in the early years, building the kind of deep relational trust that later enables a child to tolerate distance. Habit 7 is a deliberate, staged withdrawal of that closeness, not abandonment, not neglect, a carefully paced release of control that communicates something essential. I have built you solid enough for this. Now go. They are simultaneously the most present and the most hands-off parents in the world. That is not a contradiction. That is an architecture. Japanese children don't learn to respect authority figures. They learn to respect kata, form, the correct way of doing something, the process itself. That distinction is smaller than it sounds and larger than it looks. Bowing isn't about the specific person you are bowing to. It's about what the act of bowing represents. Lining up with precision isn't about the teacher watching. It's about the value of order as a thing worth honoring in itself. The rule holds the authority. The person near the rule is incidental. What this produces is something genuinely unusual. Japanese children do not behave well because someone might be watching. They behave the same whether someone is watching or not. Because the standard lives inside them now. It has been absorbed rather than imposed. Habit 8 is gaman, enduring with dignity, doing what needs doing without centering your own discomfort, continuing through difficulty without making it a public event. You see it in earthquake drills practiced with genuine seriousness, in sports teams who clean the stadium after a loss, in students who polish a hallway floor that nobody told them to clean and never once bring it up afterward. They respect the process, not out of fear, because they were shown from the very beginning that the process holds something real. Now, here's the harder thing to say honestly. The same upbringing that produces this extraordinary self-regulation also produces adults who sometimes struggle to name what they're actually feeling, who apologize reflexively and compulsively, who will push themselves well past their limits before they will ask for help, because asking feels like a disruption of the group. From the outside, it reads as emotional suppression, and sometimes it genuinely is. A 2017 study published in the journal Culture and Brain found that Japanese adults scored higher on certain markers associated with alexithymia, difficulty identifying and articulating internal emotional states, compared to Western counterparts. But the researchers flagged something that complicates the finding. This same population demonstrated unusually high collective emotional attunement. They felt deeply and accurately. They simply didn't perform it outward as proof. Habit 9, and this is the one parents model far more than they ever explicitly teach, is emotional endurance, not absence. The father who receives devastating news and comes home steady. The mother who carries a private hardship and doesn't collapse the household around it. Not because they don't feel it, because they have internalized the belief that how you hold pain matters as much as whether you feel it. The bittersweet part is unavoidable. The child raised to endure without complaint becomes an adult of remarkable capability, and remarkable solitude with their own inner life. The strength and the wound grow from identical soil. They always do. That's the irony. Japanese parenting lives inside and never quite resolves. Japanese parents look at the modern world and say very little about it. That is very Japanese. But if you pay close attention, you can see what registers. They see children who have been given everything and are restless inside all of it. Children who cannot tolerate 3 minutes without stimulation. Children who have been told they are special so many times that ordinary moments feel like disappointment. And they find this without contempt, without cruelty, but with a kind of quiet bewilderment hard to understand, because they raise their children on habit 10, ikigai, purpose, not as a motivational concept printed on a coffee mug, as a lived practice woven into ordinary days, the belief that your life carries meaning in direct proportion to how much of yourself you give to the people and the place around you. A child who sweeps the classroom floor doesn't think about purpose while sweeping. They just sweep. But somewhere inside the repetition of that act, the dailiness of it, the expectation of it, the absence of applause around it, purpose gets built. The way bone does, slowly, under consistent pressure, without anyone announcing that it's happening. What Japanese parents gave their children, quietly and without seeking recognition for any of it, was a particular kind of belonging. Not the belonging that comes from being told you are special, the belonging that comes from being needed, from being trusted, from knowing that without your contribution, something small but real would be missing from the world around you. They gave their children roots, not wings, not spotlights, not a curated highlight reel of their potential, roots. And they worry now, I think, though they won't say it out loud, about a world that moves so fast that children never stay anywhere long enough to want to take care of it. Japanese parenting is a root system. You don't see it. It has never once asked to be seen, but it holds everything above the ground. The calm child riding the subway alone, the teenager who stays after practice to clean the equipment room, the adult who faces a genuinely hard thing and carries it without drama or announcement. What is visible is never the roots. That is what makes roots powerful. They do their most important work entirely in the dark. The 10 habits in this video are not a curriculum and not a method. They are expressions of a single, quiet belief that the most powerful thing you can do for a child is make them feel so deeply secure and so genuinely necessary to the world around them that discipline stops being something you enforce from the outside and becomes something they carry in their bones without thinking about it for the rest of their lives. Japanese parents don't seek recognition for having done this. They would find the impulse a little strange, and that, perhaps, is the most Japanese thing of all, and also, quietly, the most important. Sit with that for a moment. The idea that the most powerful parenting is the parenting nobody sees. that the children who become the most grounded were never told how exceptional they were. They were simply trusted consistently to rise to what the world expected of them, and they did. If something in this video gave you a new angle on a question you've been carrying, subscribe. There's a lot more of this kind of cultural and psychological exploration where this came from. And if you want to support the channel, the link is below. Either way, I'm genuinely glad you spent this time here.